Hello everybody, this is the Vikstrand. 1998, not a very good year for movies. Most things that came out this year was pretty lackluster, especially the big budget blockbuster movies that usually populated the summers and were the highlights of the movie-going year's experience. But this year, most things that were released was the shits. Apart from one movie that really stood out. The Mask of Zorro. It was perfectly executed, was greatly cast, was a fun old-time matinee adventure that worked. It took an old concept and made it fresh without tampering with the original recipe. And 7 years later, they tampered with the recipe and ended up with a not very good movie. This is the movie we're going to talk about today. It is The Legend of Zorro. So Zorro is kind of retired right now, and California has joined the United States, and everything is looking pretty peachy for our good Alejandro de la Vega. But as we all know, action movies hate it when our heroes try to live a normal family life, and I think especially that movies featuring these vigilante superhero types of characters suffers when they have to bouncing family life with swashbuckling adventures. Unrelated picture of the sequel to Kingsman. And as you would expect, things doesn't go very well. He gets divorced from Elena, he loses his money and he loses his house and he becomes a disheveled bum basically. At the same time as this is happening, some kind of shady organization is poking around and having James Bond villain style plans of world dominations and other silly stuff as that. Can De La Vega make a comeback as Zorro? Can he reconnect with his wife somehow, who has, married some other douchebag? And does this movie have one of the worst villains of all time? I'm not talking about, how evil he is, but how ineffective he is. He succeeds with absolutely nothing throughout this entire movie, except being blown to bits by having a drop of nitroglycerin fall on his face, which could have been really gross, but instead is more played for laughs. So, this movie has a couple of major flaws in it. Switching from PG-13 to PG is the least of its problem actually, because I think that The Mask of Zorro could have survived as a PG movie because it is a family-friendly adventure picture. But the shift from a PG-13 to a PG, it suffered more in the atmosphere and the tone, because this one goes, full on goofy. And there are some really silly nonsense in this movie that made me go, oh God, could you go any more stupid and dumb than this? That's a big problem. The bigger problem is the reason why Elena has, left him, and why Zorro is, being a disheveled bum and, who tries to redeem himself. Because the whole reason why that is happening is so stupid. It is so contrived and it is so ineffectively told that I was just, but why though? To what end? If you could have removed the silly nonsense and the really goofy nonsense, if you could have replaced that with a really cool story of Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones working together, which they surprise ending up doing. I couldn't see that one coming. Not even I couldn't see that coming. We could have had a really good story, because if you look at the action sequences, they can be a lot of fun, despite being a little bit nonsense and silly and goofy here and there. If you could have just removed some of that, and if you could have focused more on the actual factual story of the villain's plan and his evil organization, and having Catherine Zeta-Jones and Antonio Banderas working together as a team, which they end up doing anyway, despite your best efforts of separating them. Idiots. I think we could have looked at this as a pretty good sequel to a very good movie. Now this is a lackluster sequel to a very good movie. If you've seen the original The Mask of Zorro, there is no reason whatsoever to see this movie. If you've only seen this movie and haven't seen The Mask of Zorro and thinking, well, I'm not gonna see that one because it's silly and stupid, I will say, see the original. The original is freaking awesome. And also, This is a classical thing of, you don't know that that is Alejandro de la Vega. I'm talking about, you know, he has a son in this movie. Zorro has a son who doesn't know that Zorro is his dad. They have, you know, this conversation where he's standing literally a meter from his fucking face and can't recognize his own dad with a stupid mask on. Your life makes me sad. With the help of a surprisingly strong third act, I can overlook this movie's too long runtime and too much focus on silly nonsense and stuff that, you know, goes nowhere. So in the end, I think that it is a lackluster sequel, but it is not so bad as people made it out to be. It is okay. I'm giving this movie 38 points. The movie has bits and pieces of it that is really, really good, and has pieces of it that is really embarrassing to watch. But it is still a fairly well-produced movie with some pretty okay acting and a couple of jokes that actually landed and a couple of action sequences that I think actually worked. It isn't a masterpiece, but it is better than some people has claimed that it is. So we'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.